Students walk out of a San Diego college and 2 high schools to protest the election of Donald Trump. A local congressman is questioning the vote count in his very close re-election bid. And taking do-it-yourself medical care to a new level with a new type of treatment for breast cancer patients. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Hundreds of high school and college students marched through downtown San Diego today to protest the coming Trump administration. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh was there.
The protest started with students leaving class at San Diego City College. Eventually, they marched through downtown to the plaza near the Federal Building off Broadway, blocking streets as they marched.
Our message right now is, okay, he won, but we're not going to let him attack our community. So instead of being different and creating hate, we're creating love, unity, and we're going to protect each other. It doesn't matter your race, religion, nothing.
They were joined by hundreds of high school students from mainly Lincoln and San Diego high schools who skipped class. San Diego Unified School District issued a statement that those students will be marked as absent but not truant, that they support the right of students to speak out but expect students to return to class in the morning. Wednesday's protests followed others that were happening around California and the country after last week's election. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
The San Diego Police Department says while the vast majority of the protests were peaceful, one 18-year-old man was arrested today. Police say he struck an officer. North County Congressman Darrell Issa is questioning the vote count in his race for re-election. The Republican is currently leading challenger Doug Applegate by 2 points. But in a fundraising letter, he tells supporters liberals are trying to steal the election. He tweeted a link to the letter on his website earlier today, but both the tweet and the letter have been taken down. The Union Tribune quotes Issa as saying there are enough ballots left to be counted that I could still lose. Issa is ahead by about 4,500 votes. Election officials in San Diego and Riverside counties are still counting mail-in and provisional ballots, but it's not clear just how many they have yet to count. If you see a hate crime, report it. That's the message today from the San Diego District Attorney's Office. Its hate crimes unit investigates and prosecutes crimes motivated by race, gender, and other prejudices. Today, I spoke to the head of the unit, Deputy District Attorney Oscar Garcia. So what elements does a crime have to have before it is classified as a hate crime?
The essential element, what makes a crime different, a hate crime different from other types of crime, is that the prosecution is required to prove that at least a substantial motivation for the crime was a bias or prejudice towards a particular characteristic of the victim. Those characteristics are those shared by everybody. It can be based upon race, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, religion, gender, and disability.
So recently, the DA's office has charged 3 men locally with a hate crime connected to an assault at a pizza shop. Can you tell me about that?
I can tell you what has occurred in open court. We had an arraignment for 3 individuals charged with a hate crime for an unprovoked attack upon a male Somali victim who is Muslim. He was beaten down in a pizza shop, and these 3 men are being held to answer for the charges.
Here at SDSU, school officials say that they are investigating a possible hate crime. Can you tell me if prosecutors are involved in any way? Are they aware and investigating as well?
Yes, we have been involved and spoken with the detective working on that crime here at San Diego State, and various investigators are involved with that case. So it has not formally been brought to our office since a suspect has not been identified, but yeah, we provide our resources to local law enforcement whenever a hate crime occurs.
And some people are feeling since this recent presidential election that there's been an uptick in incidents in hate crimes. What are we seeing locally? What are you seeing locally? And any evidence of that in San Diego County?
Well, we're always very vigilant when it comes to these kinds of cases, and a lot of times there are certain types of perpetrators who commit these crimes as a reaction. We refer to them as reactionary type offenders. So what's happening right now in the media, what happened post-election, is not surprising to us that there appears to be an increase, if not necessarily hate crimes, but at least hate-reported incidents.
And you talk about documented. How are these crimes documented and tracked here in California and in San Diego County, just to see if by chance there is a trend?
Well, the Department of Justice in California we're mandatory reporter in the state of California, so every police agency, every prosecutor's office is required to provide statistics to the Department of Justice so they can provide their stats every year so we can compare year-to-year trends. If you look at, again, the Department of Justice California, there was an increase in hate crimes in California. Comparing 2014 to 2015, a little bit over 10% increase in hate crime events.
So the DA's office is reaching out and communicating with the Somali community. Can you talk about how you're doing that and what brought that about?
Well, that was initiated by the San Diego Police Department. They invited my office, so the law enforcement agencies, to present tomorrow afternoon in their community, not too far from where this attack took place at the pizza shop. And we're going to highlight to the Somali community, others present there, that again, we're going to be very proactive. We continue to be proactive with these cases, but we definitely need the community's assistance on these cases. In fact, that case, we believe, was solved by a good Samaritan citizen who followed the offenders and followed their vehicle away from the location of the crime and called police. So we need those types of citizens to stand up and not merely just be a bystander, but actually get involved and take a description, get a license plate, give those descriptions of the suspects to the police. Because these types of cases oftentimes involve issues with identification, because it's stranger upon stranger. It may be nighttime, multiple attackers, victims may be under the influence of an intoxicant. We need good reporting by not only the victims, but by the witnesses and their cooperation with the police. We can't do it alone.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Garcia says many of the public acts of prejudice don't rise to the level of hate crime. They may even be protected by free speech. Still, he says his office works very closely with local police and the FBI and takes these reports very serious. Horn of Africa is a nonprofit working with East African refugees in San Diego. Leaders say they've spoken to the Muslim SDSU student who was assaulted and say assailants made derogatory comments about her East African descent before taking her purse and car.
It's 2:30 p.m. and it's at San Diego State, and they came up to her. They made several derogatory statements about her being East African and she's, early 20s, young girl, and they snatched her purse, and she didn't want to fight them, and they took off with her purse and her keys, and they took off with her car. And there was other people that were just physically there. They witnessed, and no one called the police. No one has said, hey, what are you doing? That's just the atmosphere we are dealing with.
Tomorrow, SDPD Multicultural Community Relations Office is hosting a Somali community and law enforcement meeting to discuss hate crime specifically. It's at the Multicultural Community Relations Office on University Avenue. It starts at 3:30 and is open to the public. The Mexican government says there's some nervousness after the election of Donald Trump, so it's strengthening its role of its consulates here in the U.S. to help Mexicans living in this country. Mexico's ambassador to the U.S. says there will also be a toll-free hotline where Mexicans can get information or report incidents. Today's announcement also advises Mexicans in the U.S. to avoid conflict situations. A federal report says Border Patrol agents in San Ysidro were justified in using force in the deadly incident 2 years ago. Francisco Cecina of El Cajon died after being hit with a stun gun. Agents say they were trying to subdue him after he attacked them. Cecina was detained after agents found a warrant for his arrest, and they say he was carrying drugs at the time. His family has filed a wrongful death suit saying the Border Patrol used excessive force. A local immigrant rights group says it's disappointed with the federal report. Illegal drug use among men booked in San Diego County jails was at a 16-year high last year. That according to a new report by the San Diego Association of Governments. The annual report shows that 76% of men who were arrested and booked tested positive for illegal drugs in 2015, 8% higher than in 2014. Meth use among women arrested was down slightly last year, but still at 52%, a higher rate than men. The report says a typical meth user takes the drug 5 times a day, 7 days in a row, and has been using an average of 14 years. The American Civil Liberties Union has legally challenged California's death penalty procedures. The group filed a lawsuit over the current state law giving the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation the ability to decide how executions are done. The ACLU argues giving a state agency that power over the death penalty violates the state constitution. But critics say the challenge is an attempt to slow down the process.
The agency has the ability to adopt newer and better methods. If you have to get something through the legislature every time you make a change, you could be holding up improvements that could easily be made.
Last week, California voters passed State Proposition 66 aimed to speed up executions. In the wee hours after last week's election, a Twitter hashtag started trending called CalExit, inspired by Brexit, where Great Britain voted to leave the European Union. Users started suggesting that maybe California could do the same. KCET's Val Zavala explains why it won't happen.
Okay, California, can we really secede from the rest of the country? Short answer, no. I know for many of you it would feel really good to escape a Trump presidency, but ain't gonna happen. No way, Jose. Why? First, there are no provisions in the U.S. Constitution for a state to secede. Do a word search. Secession doesn't even show up. Second, secession was tried once back in the 1860s. 11 states attempted a group exit. What was it called? Oh yeah, the Civil War. It was ugly. Then even after the Civil War, the Supreme Court ruled the states could not secede. The state in question was Texas. The Chief Justice wrote, "Our union is complete, perpetual, indissoluble, and final." Now, there is a small opening. The same court said it would be possible with consent of the states, but it would take 3/4 of all the states to agree. Get real. We can't even agree to get rid of daylight savings time. Bottom line, America is built to last. We'll just have to stick it out and stick together through good hair presidents and bad hair presidents. In the meantime, maybe we should focus on solving some of the problems that divided us in the first place. Much, much better idea.
New data shows more Californians are dying on state highways because they're using their phones. The state's Office of Traffic Safety says there were nearly 1,000 more traffic-related fatalities in 2015 than 2011. A new law takes effect in January that looks to stop people from using their phones in the car.
It's a step down the road toward making things a little less dangerous. But any use of a mobile device while you're driving is dangerous.
Surveys show last year over 12% of drivers used their phones behind the wheel. San Diego bus and trolley drivers waiting for upgrades to their Compass cards will have to wait a bit longer. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the long-awaited stored value function has been delayed.
Back in June, the Metropolitan Transit System said it had a timeline for adding stored value to the Compass card. The function, branded Compass Cash, will allow transit riders to load money on their fare card and spend it as needed. It was due to launch this month, but MTS now says hardware and software issues have pushed it back to sometime early next year.
It's really important when you launch something that it's done right. I mean, that will limit the frustration ultimately. If we launch and it's not quite right, that'll increase frustration. So we want to get it perfect before we get it out into the public.
MTS is also planning a new smartphone app that will sell bus and trolley tickets. That app was due in August, but it faced a similar delay and is now expected by the end of March. Both are tools that could help the agency attract more car owners to public transit. On the subject of data security, MTS says it's still working on it. KPBS reported earlier this year that the Compass card system is failing to comply with the credit card industry's data security standards. There's still no timeline for when the system will get into compliance. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Union workers at UC San Diego plan to join UCLA's electricians, mechanics, plumbers, and others tomorrow for a strike. It comes after both universities refused to negotiate back pay. The workers on strike have expired contracts, but decided to strike because a mutual agreement for their wages was not reached. UCLA says they're disappointed by the decision. California is looking at a budget surplus of nearly $3 billion next year. The state budget analyst says we should be able to weather a mild recession without major budget cuts over the next 4 years, as long as lawmakers don't approve additional spending.
Would, as it has in the past, necessitate some difficult decisions, either raising taxes or reducing spending in key program areas. And so by building a reserve, the legislature is able to cushion itself, and the state is able to cushion itself against those difficult decisions in the future.
One of the things we know from past painful experience is that revenues can turn on a dime, and where we think we're going to be in a position of having good fiscal fortunes going forward, outside forces can change that in a matter of months.
Governor Jerry Brown will release his next budget proposal in January. San Diego's Budget Committee met today to consider the city's 5-year financial outlook. The news isn't all good. The mayor's office says rising pension costs will take a big bite out of the city's revenues. This is the kind of problem San Diego voters tried to solve 4 years ago by passing Proposition B, the pension reform measure. Earlier today, I spoke to KPBS editor Tom Fudge about the history of San Diego's pension problems. Tom, you wrote about San Diego's pension crisis. When exactly did it come to a head?
Well, it was a long time in the making, but if you think about 10 years ago, the city of San Diego had a pension deficit of $2 billion. That was not just the pension, but also retiree health benefits. A $2 billion deficit and no plan for how to pay for it. And the reason this happened is really pretty simple. The leaders of the city of San Diego were offering lots of pension benefits, but were underfunding the pension. Now, I spoke with Jerry Sanders, who was mayor at the time, and here's the way he described how it happened.
It was city management that made those decisions. I talked to one of the union leaders, and she basically said our job is to ask for better benefits and more money, and it's the city's job to say no if they can't afford it.
And as a result of this, the city had some very hard times. They had to cut about 10% of its workforce, and then in 2012, San Diego voters passed Proposition B.
So what did Proposition B do?
Well, Proposition B was pension reform. Essentially what it did is it said for new hires with the city of San Diego, they would not receive a guaranteed pension. They would receive a guaranteed contribution to their retirement plan, what we would call a 401k. And the significance of this, Ebony, is that shifts the financial risk from the employer, the city of San Diego, to the employees, because the city is no longer going to guarantee that you're going to get a certain amount, in retirement. Now, Jerry Sanders says Proposition B in the future will save the city tens of millions of dollars every year.
You've spoken to several union leaders and employees. What do people think about the current system?
Well, municipal unions didn't like Prop B when it was passed, and they still don't like it now. One person I did talk to was Michael Zuquette, who's the union manager of the Municipal Employees Association, and here's what he said about the changes in Prop B.
It was a loss in benefit that we knew was going to be hurtful not only to the individual employees but to the city's ability to recruit qualified employees in the future.
Now, Ebony, one thing you have to keep in mind is that workers at the city of San Diego don't get Social Security. They're not part of that system. And the reason why that's an issue is if you have a 401k and the market tanks and your 401k tanks, there's no Social Security check that you can fall back on. All you have is the 401k. And a lot of people, a lot of employees at the city of San Diego think that's a problem.
And how does this impact the city's ability to compete with the private sector?
Well, it kind of depends who you asked. When I talked to Michael Zuquette, he said that this is causing a large vacancy rate in the city of San Diego, and there are a lot of people who come to work for the city of San Diego and don't stay for very long because San Diego is the only municipality in San Diego County that does not have a guaranteed pension, and he says that's a problem. The final judgment on Proposition B, I think, has yet to be seen. We know what Jerry Sanders is predicting, but we don't know exactly how much it's going to save the city. One last thing I should say about Prop B is it is being reviewed by the courts. The municipal unions in San Diego have sued, saying the way it was created was incorrect, and that is now before the courts.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm Hari Srinivasan. On the next news hour, the head of the company building the pipeline in North Dakota that spurred protests. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
Doctors are testing a device that would let women who've lost a breast to cancer do part of the reconstruction at home. Associated Press reporter Kathy Matheson has more.
After her mastectomy, breast cancer patient Luinces Fernandez used an experimental device called Aeroform to help with her breast reconstruction.
With 2 kids at home, that gave me, I thought, would be more independence.
Every year in the U.S., more than 100,000 women have a breast removed due to cancer. Replacing it often requires a tissue expander, a temporary pouch that's gradually enlarged with saline shots to make room for a permanent implant. It can be a painful process requiring many trips to the doctor over several months. But using Aeroform, Fernandez finished her expansion in just 18 days.
And there you go.
It works by releasing small doses of compressed gas into the tissue expander.
You know, the point of breast reconstruction is to help them put this behind. The more comfortably you can do that and the quicker you can do that, the better it is for the women.
Dr. Jeffrey Asherman led a company-sponsored study of 150 women in which Aeroform patients finished tissue expansion in half the time as those receiving saline. Aeroform is still under review by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, but it's already sold in Australia and approved in Europe. Doctors outside the study say it's an interesting concept.
Anything that's going to make things easier for the patient, we're going to take a serious look at it.
While convenience is a factor, Aeroform could also offer a psychological boost. Experts say that's important because cancer can make patients feel powerless.
To know that I would not have to come to the doctor's office so many times and to be able to do it at home instead, that was something that I was attracted to.
Giving Fernandez a hand in her own recovery. Kathy Matheson, Associated Press.
Take a look at that. Big waves in Oceanside today, soaking onlookers and streets near the beach. Big waves over at La Jolla Shores, too. All this after a supermoon. Experts say that can cause rising tides. Today, we also saw low clouds around the county. Shanae Shocker has tonight's forecast.
Well, over the past 6 hours, we've been seeing plenty of cloudy weather, and the reason for that, Pacific storm passed on shore, and it's begun to move inland, and that cold front, along with it, being pulled into the east. And that's what's been bringing us some more cloudy weather as we have that onshore flow, and even some breezy weather as well. As we take a closer look, you can really see that cloud cover move through. Now, the areas in green, maybe a spotty shower here or there, but we're not seeing any widespread rainfall at all. So throughout tonight, our lows looking to be in the mid to upper 50s, so cooling off, partly cloudy conditions. And as we take a look at the rest of the county, towards the waters, up north towards Oceanside, we're looking at 45 degrees, 51 out in Long Beach. And we head inland into Ramona and into the mountains in Alpine. Temperatures across the board in the low 40s. Mount Laguna even getting into the 30s as well, 37 degrees for tonight. Borrego Springs and into Mecca, we're looking to stick into the low 50s. Now, as we head towards our Thursday, that area of low pressure and that cold front bringing cooler weather towards the inland portions of the southwest. Unfortunately for us here in San Diego County, you can see not quite getting in on that blue area. So we'll continue to have some pretty mild conditions as well. And this is going to extend into the weekend. That area of low pressure moves into the northeast, and behind it, big ridge of high pressure. That's bringing us mild conditions. Northern part of the state, though, will continue to see some rain as another Pacific storm ushers on shore. So as we head out towards the coast, this is what we're going to be seeing. Plenty of sunshine to go around. A couple of clouds across the sky, especially for your Thursday. 74 degrees will climb into the mid to upper 70s for the end of your work week. And as we head towards the weekend, very comfortable conditions. We're on a cool down towards early next week, maybe even a shower in the forecast, and temperatures sitting in the mid 40s for your lows. And now Now we head inland, temperatures climbing into the 80s for the end of your work week and the beginning of your weekend. Definitely warmer out there, and mostly sunny skies headed towards the end of your weekend. Temperatures will begin to drop, and we'll see maybe a couple of spotty showers around the area for your Monday as well as a cool off. We're looking to drop about 10 degrees inland for your Monday. Now in the mountains, 53 degrees for your high on your Thursday. Very breezy with that area of low pressure moving out. We'll stick to the low 60s for your Friday and jump into the 50s once again for your weekend. The good news, though it is cooler, we will be having a lot of sunshine. A couple of showers even possible in the mountain areas for Monday with highs dropping into the 40s. And last but not least, once again, we're heading out into the deserts. Now this is nice. Temperatures across the board in the 70s as we head towards your weekend. Plenty of sunshine for your Sunday. We'll get into the upper 70s on Sunday. Our lows looking to climb from the 30s on your Saturday into the 50s on your Sunday, and a couple of showers around the area for your Monday. For KPBS News, I'm Shanae Shocker.
He's already in the Padres Hall of Fame and the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now the late Tony Gwynn will be inducted into the California Hall of Fame. The induction ceremony will be held on November 30th. Other inductees include Isabel Allende and actors Harrison Ford and George Takei. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.